接下来呢，我们接着来看一下第4和第6题。那么首先来看一下第12套题的第4题。那么这道题呢，同样我们先阅读一下材料。Humans are constantly perceiving visual and auditory stimuli. Sometimes our perception of these stimuli occurs consciously. We are aware of a stimulus and know what we are perceiving it. But our perception of a stimulus can also occur without our awareness. 那么这就是两种。An image might appear and disappear before our eyes too quickly for us to notice where we saw it. Or a sound might be too faint for us to realize that we heard it. This phenomena, the perception of a stimulus just below the threshold of conscious awareness, is called subliminal perception. Experiments have shown that subliminally perceived stimuli can influence people's thoughts and attitudes. 那么这个地方我们就看到我们需要解释的一个词就已经出来了，就是 subliminal perception。那么我们首先要从这个阅读材料中总结出这样一个 definition。那么首先要抓住这样一些描述性的关键词，然后呢，我们来审一下题。Describe what subliminal perception is and explain how the experiment discussed by the professor illustrates this phenomena. 那么看到这个题我们要解释，首先给出一个定义，然后再听一下这个 lecture， 然后用一下里面的 example 来解释一下这个词到底是什么意思。那么现在呢，我们就来听一下听力。
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a psychology class.
Consider this experiment. 2 groups of people were asked to watch TV, and while they were watching, a picture flashed on the screen, less than a second, very quickly, so it was barely noticeable. The picture was of a boy with a birthday cake. Now, like I said, there were 2 groups, and each group saw a slightly different version of the picture. One group got the boy looking angry. In fact, he was actually throwing the cake on the floor. The other group got a picture of the boy smiling, happy, holding out the cake like he was offering it. Same boy, same cake, but different emotions expressed in each picture. Everyone was then asked to look at a different image. Now, this is a third image, right? Again, it's the boy and the cake, but this time the image stayed on the screen. In this picture, the boy's just holding the cake, basically no emotion on his face, everything very neutral. Now remember, nobody knew they'd already seen a picture of this boy. After a minute, everyone was asked to describe the boy's personality. Those who'd been exposed to the image of the angry boy, they generally described the boy's personality negatively. Those who'd earlier seen the happy boy described him, well, positively.
好的，听力听完了，大家注意到其实在听听力的时候第一要务呢是理解，然后呢抓住一些关键词和细节，把那个 samples 一定要说出来。首先给出一个定义 Subliminal perception is a phenomenon that the perception of stimulus is just below the threshold of conscious awareness, and it can influence people's thought and attitudes. 这就是把阅读材料中的前后一些比较重要的内容总结了出来。The professor uses an experiment to illustrate this phenomena. In the experiment, 2 groups of people were asked to watch TV. 这个地方就是一些 details 的叙述了。A picture flashed on the screen. It appears so fast that it's barely noticeable. The picture is a boy with a birthday cake, but each group is shown to a slightly different version of the picture. One group is shown to a picture in which the boy is angry and trying to throw the cake. The other group is shown to a picture in which the boy is smiling and trying to offer the cake. Later, these 2 groups of people were shown to a third picture in which the boy is holding the cake without any expressions. The people were asked to describe the boy's personality. The result is that the group that has seen the angry boy describes him negatively, while the group that has seen the smiling boy described him positively. 那么这个地方啊，就是先给一个定义，然后再把这个 detailed examples 叙述出来就可以了。那么下一套题的第4题呢，也是同样的，我们先来阅读这一段材料。How an object affects our senses depends in part on external conditions, and these conditions are always changing. An object viewed from one angle presents a different shape to our eye than when viewed from another angle. Similarly, as the distance from which we view an object changes, the object will appear larger or smaller. In spite of this, even as conditions change and we see objects differently, we still recognize that they remain the same. This is what is known as perceptual constancy. 这个地方就出现了我们要解释的这样一个专有名词了。If not of perceptual constancy, we might have difficulty recognizing familiar objects if we view them in a new and different context. 我们来审一下题目的要求。Explain what is meant by perceptual constancy, using the examples provided by the professor. 所以同样的2步，首先要解释一下 what is perceptual constancy， 然后要结合自己读到的一些内容，然后其次呢要提供一些 examples。那么这个 examples 呢就是这个回答的主要部分了，所以一定要非常的细致，但是又要控制在时间之内。那么知道这个题目的要求之后啊，我们就先来听一下听力。
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a psychology class.
Let's take an everyday example, an ordinary round plate like you'd find in a kitchen. If you hold the plate directly in front of your face and look at it, what shape do you see? A perfect circle, right? Suppose you tilt the plate to a different angle, to a horizontal position, like you're planning to put food on it. Still a perfect circle? No. The circle is now stretched out, flattened into an oval. Do you conclude the plate has actually changed shape? Or that it's a different object, not the same plate? Of course not. It looks different, but we perceive it as still being the same. Here's a different example. This classroom we're in, it's fairly large, right? Now, from up close, from the front row, I appear to be relatively big. Bigger than if you were in the last row, right? But let's say you're sitting in the front row today, but tomorrow you're sitting in the back row. From back there, I'm going to look smaller, but you don't think I've actually gotten smaller. You don't think you're seeing a different professor, a guy who looks like me except he's smaller. No matter where you are, up close or far away, you understand without even thinking about it that I'm the same size, the same person.
那么听力听完了，咱们也知道啊，咱们的答案要有2部分构成。Perceptual constancy is our ability to recognize the same object in many different contexts, even if the object may look different in different contexts. 这个地方啊就给出了一个定义，这是咱们必须要做的。The professor uses 2 examples to illustrate this ability. The first example is plate. If we put a round plate directly at our face, it is a perfect circle. But if we put it in a horizontal position, it is no longer a circle, but an oval. Still, we recognize it as the same plate. The oval one is not a different object. Even if it looks different, we still perceive it as the same. The second example is the professor himself. He looks bigger to the students in the front row than those in the back row. If a student sits in the front row today and then in the back tomorrow, the student still perceive him as the same professor, even if to the student the professor's size has changed. 那么接着呢，我们来看一下这个第6题。那么第6题的要求呢，也是展现在这里了，我们一起来审一下题。Using the points and examples from the talk, explain how substitute goods and complement goods influence demand for a particular product. 这个在咱们学过高中的政治啊，都会接触到这样一个 substitute goods and complement goods 这样2个概念。咱们在有这样的 基础知识的情况下呀是最好的。然后审完题目的要求之后呀，我们一起来听一下听力。
Listen to part of a lecture in an economics class.
So when we talk about the demand for a product, we're referring to how much consumers want to buy it, right? And often the demand for a product is influenced by its price. The more expensive it becomes, the less chance that people will want to buy it. Okay, but that's not the whole story. Sometimes the demand for a product can also be influenced by the price of other related products. First, there are those products called substitute goods. If products can be substituted for one another, then they're called substitute goods. They're similar enough to be interchangeable. And an increase in the price of one means an increase in the demand for the other, like butter and margarine. They're pretty much used for the same purposes. Margarine's a butter substitute, and you can bake equally well with either. Well, when the price of butter goes up, it becomes less affordable, and so what do people do? They buy margarine instead, right? So, you see, an increase in the price of butter increases the demand for margarine. Now, another instance where the price of one product can influence the demand of another is when you have two products that can't be used without each other. Those products we call complement goods. They complement or complete each other, if you will, like compact discs and compact disc players. You need both products in order to use either. So if the price of either product increases, demand for both is likely to decrease. And if the price of CDs goes up, well, demand for them will go down, right? And because CDs and CD players complement each other, what will also happen is that the demand for CD players will go down too.
好的，听完了听力呢，我们知道我们又要有两个名词要解释，同时还要举出一些 examples. The demand of a product can be influenced by the price of a related product. The first kind related products are called substitute goods. Goods that can be substituted for one and another. They are interchangeable, so the increase in the price of one product means the increase in the demand for another. For example, butter and margarine are interchangeable. If the price of butter goes up, people will buy margarine instead. So the increase in the price of butter lead to the increase in demand for margarine. The second kind of related products are called complement goods. 我们进行到第二点了。Goods that can't be used without each other. They complement or complete each other. For example, compact disc and disc player are complement products, since they should always be used together. So if the price of either product increases, the demand for both will decrease. If the price of CD goes up, the demand of CD will go down. Since CD player complements CD, the demand for CD player will go down too. 我们这个地方就用了两个例子来解释这两个专有名词。然后我们继续来看一下13套题的第6题。Using the examples of the Leafy Sea Dragon and the Cuttlefish, describe two kinds of camouflage and the benefits they provide. 那么这两种动物呀，其实咱们如果很少接触这方面的英语的话，还是很难理解的。不过呢，同样的，哪怕不知道它们是什么，我们依旧能对这个题目进行作答。因为只要呀，咱们认真听，然后 use the examples， 然后抓住一些细节就可以了。那么咱们来做一下听力练习。
Now listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Now, many sea animals, in order to hide from predators, have, over time, developed different kinds of camouflage to help them blend in with their environment and avoid detection by predators. Picture the surface of the seafloor. It's as varied as the land we live on. It's got peaks and valleys, vegetation, rocky areas, And some sea animals have developed permanent colors or shapes to resemble these environmental features. This camouflage helps disguise them from predators by enabling them to blend into a specific part of the sea. For instance, take a kind of fish like the Leafy Sea Dragon. Well, the name says it all. It resembles a small green dragon with leaf-like protrusions sticking out like arms. Now, because of its color and shape, it blends in extremely well with green sea plants. So when the leafy sea dragon is swimming through these plants, predators have trouble seeing it. But when it enters other environments without these green plants, its camouflage doesn't work anymore. Now, other sea animals are difficult to spot anywhere in the sea because their type of camouflage enables them to change color. Take the cuttlefish, a fish that's closely related to the squid and octopus. Unlike leafy sea dragons, cuttlefish have not developed any particular shape to hide from predators, but they have a lot more mobility because their camouflage allows them to blend into any environment. Because cuttlefish have shifting pigments that allow them to change color in a matter of seconds, and so they can almost instantaneously match the color of their surroundings. If they're swimming by green sea plants, they'll turn green, and if they're swimming over the brown seafloor, they'll turn brown.
好的，听完练习之后呢，我们可以看到呀，我们可以从这两种动物身上呢学到两种伪装隐藏的方式。那么咱只需要把这个 lecture 啊好好的复述一遍就可以了。同时啊要注意时间。Some sea animals have developed colors and shapes to resemble environmental features in order to avoid predators. For example, Leafy Sea Dragon has leafy protrusions sticking out like arms. Its shape and color resemble the green sea plants, so it blends in well in the environment. When it is swimming through green sea plants, predators have trouble seeing it. But without green plants, its camouflage doesn't work. 下一种动物 Another example is Cuttlefish. Unlike Leafy Sea Dragon, Cuttlefish camouflage can work anywhere. It changes color to blend in any environment. It has shifting pigments, and it can change color instantly. If it is swimming by the green sea plants, its color can change to green. If it is swimming by the brown sea floor, its color changes to brown. 你可以看到我们把这个 lecture 啊复述了一遍，抓住了一些重点。同时呢，大家一定要注意时间。在做练习的时候呢，一定要确保每一次练习都有给自己掐时间，这样就可以在短时间内训练自己这种组织语言的能力了。那么以上呢就是今天的全部内容了，非常感谢大家。